Welcome back Coinology. In this video we are diving deep into the fascinating world of the 2007 D1 cent coin, a small copper-colored piece of American history that many people overlook every single day, yet behind its ordinary appearance lies a story filled with history, mystery, rare errors, collector obsession, and unbelievable rumors of extreme values that can reach into the hundreds of millions of dollars under extraordinary and highly specific circumstances. This is not just a penny. This is a symbol of American commerce, survival, and the evolution of money itself, and today we are going to explore every possible angle of the 2007 D Lincoln cent in extreme detail, from its physical characteristics to its design, from its historical background to the myths and legends that surround ultra-rare examples, and from everyday pocket change value to the jaw-dropping figures sometimes mentioned in collector circles. The 2007 D1 cent coin was minted in the United States and carries the famous D Mint mark, which indicates it was produced at the Denver Mint. The Denver Mint is one of the most important coin-producing facilities in the United States and has been responsible for minting billions of coins that circulate all around the world. In 2007, the United States was still using the Lincoln Memorial reverse design, which had been introduced back in 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. This means the 2007 D penny belongs to the long-running Lincoln Memorial Cent series, a series that spans decades and is deeply connected to American culture and everyday life. When we talk about the weight of the 2007 D penny, it officially weighs approximately 2.5 grams. This weight standard applies to modern Lincoln cents made primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating. The composition is about 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper. This change in composition originally happened in 1982 due to rising copper prices, and by 2007 this zinc core copper-plated structure was completely standard. Despite being mostly zinc, the coin still carries that classic copper appearance, which often confuses people into believing it is solid copper like older pennies, but in reality the value and structure are very different. The diameter of the coin is approximately 19.05 millimeters, and the thickness is about 1.52 millimeters. These dimensions have remained consistent for many years, making the Lincoln cent instantly recognizable to anyone who has ever handled American money. The edge of the coin is plain, with no reading or lettering, which again reflects its practical design as a low-denomination coin meant for mass circulation. Now let's talk about the coin symbol, because many people misunderstand this part. The 1 cent coin is symbolized by the cent sign, which looks like a lowercase c with a vertical line through it. While the cent sign is not commonly used in everyday writing anymore, it still represents the 100th part of a dollar and remains an important monetary symbol. On the coin itself, you will not see the cent sign directly, but you will see the word 1 cent clearly engraved on the reverse side, making its denomination unmistakable. The obverse, or front side, of the 2007 D penny features the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln. This portrait was originally designed by Victor David Brenner and has been in use since 1909. Making it one of the longest-running portrait designs in American coinage history. Lincoln faces to the right, and his expression is calm, thoughtful, and dignified. Above his head is the word liberty, which represents one of the core values of the United States. To the right of Lincoln's portrait is the date 2007, and just below the date you will find the mint mark D, indicating Denver. To the left side of the portrait, you will see the famous phrase "In God We Trust," which has been a part of American coinage for many years and reflects cultural and historical beliefs. The reverse side of the coin shows the Lincoln Memorial, a powerful symbol of American history and respect for one of its greatest presidents. The memorial is depicted with remarkable detail, especially considering the small size of the coin. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, which is an impressive artistic achievement. Above the memorial is the phrase United States of America, and just below that you will see E pluribus unum, a Latin phrase meaning out of many, one, symbolizing the unity of the states. At the bottom of the reverse, the words 1 cent clearly state the coin's value. Now let's move into the history behind the 2007 D penny and why it matters. The year 2007 was an interesting time in American history. It was just before the global financial crisis of 2008, a period when everyday money still flowed normally and coins like the penny were widely used in daily transactions. Millions upon millions of 2007 D pennies were produced, making them extremely common in circulation. Because of this, most 2007 D pennies are worth only their face value of 1 cent. However, the world of coin collecting is not just about common examples, it is about anomalies, errors, condition, rarity, and stories. This is where the conversation starts to change from ordinary to extraordinary. While the vast majority of 2007 D pennies are common, there are certain rare errors and exceptional specimens that can dramatically increase a coin's value. In numismatics, which is the study and collection of coins, errors are often more valuable than standard issues because they represent mistakes that slipped through quality control and entered circulation. These mistakes can include off-center strikes, double dies, clipped planchets, wrong planchet errors, die cracks, and other unusual features. For example, a 2007 D penny with a strong double die error, where the design elements appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process, can be worth significantly more than face value. Depending on the strength and visibility of the doubling, such coins can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Another type of error is an off-metal strike, where the penny is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. These types of errors are extremely rare and highly sought after by collectors. Condition also plays a massive role in value. A 2007 D penny that has never been circulated and remains in pristine condition, graded as MS68 or higher by professional grading services, can command surprisingly high prices compared to average examples. While these prices are usually in the tens or hundreds of dollars rather than millions, they demonstrate how condition alone can transform a 1-cent coin into a valuable collectible. And now we reach the part that captures everyone's attention, the idea of a 2007 D penny being worth an unbelievable figure such as $252 million. It is extremely important to understand that values at this level are not associated with ordinary coins. When figures like this are mentioned, they are usually tied to theoretical scenarios, legendary one-of-a-kind errors, experimental strikes, or coins with extraordinary provenance. Provenance means the documented history of a coin, including who owned it and why it is significant. In some hypothetical discussions, collectors talk about the possibility of a unique 2007 D penny struck on an experimental planchet, or one that contains a composition never officially released, combined with a dramatic mint error in perfect condition, and supported by full documentation from the mint. In such an extreme and almost mythical case, a coin could theoretically reach astronomical values if multiple ultra-wealthy collectors competed to own it. This is how numbers like $252 million sometimes enter the conversation, not as realistic market prices for normal coins, but as symbolic representations of the absolute upper limit of rarity and desirability. The current real market value of a standard 2007 D penny is still just 1 cent. Even uncirculated rolls are usually worth only a small premium. Error coins can range from a few dollars to several $1,000s depending on the type and severity of the error. Certified high-grade examples can also bring modest premiums. But the dream of finding a life-changing penny keeps collectors searching through pocket change, coin rolls, and old jars of coins every single day. This fascination is part of what makes coin collecting so powerful. The idea that something so small and so common could potentially be extraordinary fuels imagination and passion. The 2007 D penny represents this idea perfectly. It is a coin that millions of people have held without a second thought, yet within that massive production there could be a handful of extraordinary pieces that tell a completely different story. As we move forward into the deeper layers of the 2007 D 1-cent coin story, it becomes important to understand how collectors actually search for value, how they examine a penny, and why two coins that look almost identical to the naked eye can have completely different worth in the collector market. This is where patience, knowledge, and attention to microscopic details separate an ordinary person from a serious numismatist. The 2007 D penny may appear simple, but under magnification it becomes a complex object full of clues, marks, textures, and tiny details that can completely change its identity. When a collector picks up a 2007 D penny, the first thing they usually examine is the surface. The surface of a coin tells a story of its life. Scratches, nicks, discoloration, and wear indicate circulation, while smooth, shiny, undisturbed surfaces suggest the coin may be uncirculated. For modern pennies like the 2007 D, most examples found in circulation will show dull color, small scratches, and flattened details, especially on Lincoln's hair and cheek. These coins hold no premium value beyond face value. However, a penny that still has its original mint luster, a bright reflective shine that moves like liquid when tilted under light, is immediately more interesting. Next comes magnification. Under a magnifying glass or microscope, collectors search for doubling in letters, numbers, and Lincoln's facial features. A true doubled die error is not the same as machine doubling. This distinction is extremely important. Machine doubling appears flat and shelf-like and usually adds little or no value. True doubled die errors, on the other hand, show rounded, clearly separated design elements caused by a misalignment during the die creation process. On a 2007 D penny, collectors may inspect the date, the word Liberty, and the phrase "In God We Trust" for any signs of doubling. Even subtle doubling can increase value, while dramatic doubling can make a coin highly desirable. Another major area of interest is die cracks and die breaks. As minting dies are used repeatedly, they wear down and can crack. When this happens, molten metal fills the cracks during striking, creating raised lines on the finished coin. Some die cracks are small and insignificant, while others are large and dramatic, sometimes creating what collectors call cuds, where a chunk of the design near the edge is missing and replaced by a blob of metal. A 2007 D penny with a large cut or dramatic die break can be worth significantly more than a normal example, especially if the error is visually striking. Off-center strikes are another fascinating category. In this type of error, the coin is not properly aligned during the striking process, causing part of the design to be missing and blank space to appear on one side. The value of an off-center 2007 D penny depends on how much of the design is missing and whether the date and mint mark are still visible. Coins that are off-center by 10 to 15% may bring modest premiums, while those off-center by 50% or more with a visible date can be very desirable and command much higher prices. Clipped planchets are another error type collectors look for. This occurs when a piece of metal is improperly cut before striking, resulting in a coin with a curved or straight missing section. Genuine clipped planchets will show specific characteristics, such as metal flow lines near the clip and a weakened rim opposite the clip. A genuine clipped planchet 2007 D penny can be worth many times its face value, especially if the clip is large and clearly visible. One of the most dramatic and rare errors involves wrong planchet strikes. This happens when a penny is struck on a planchet intended for a different coin, such as a dime or a foreign coin. Because modern minting processes are highly controlled, these errors are extremely rare. If a verified 2007 D penny were discovered struck on the wrong planchet, it would instantly become a major numismatic discovery. Such coins are often sent to professional grading services for authentication, because without expert verification, claims of wrong planchet errors are difficult to prove. Professional grading plays a massive role in the modern coin market. Companies like PCGS and NGC examine coins under controlled conditions, authenticate them, assign a grade, and encapsulate them in protective holders known as slabs. For a 2007 D penny to achieve a high grade such as MS67, MS68, or higher, it must have nearly perfect surfaces, sharp strikes, excellent luster, and minimal contact marks. Coins graded at these levels are extremely rare, even for modern issues, because mass production almost always results in small imperfections. This is where the psychology of value begins to take over. When collectors see a population report showing that only a handful of 2007 D pennies exist in the highest grades, competition increases. Even though the coin itself is common, the condition becomes rare. This is why some modern pennies sell for surprisingly high prices at auction, not because they are ancient or historically unique, but because they represent perfection within a massive sea of imperfection. Now let's talk about myths, rumors, and internet stories, because they play a huge role in how people perceive coin values. Over the years, countless articles, videos, and posts have claimed that certain pennies are worth millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. These stories often mix real numismatic concepts with exaggerated or misunderstood information. The idea of a 2007 D penny being worth $252 million falls into this category of extreme speculation. While it captures attention and imagination, it should be understood as a theoretical or legendary scenario rather than a realistic expectation for coins found in everyday circulation. In reality, the highest prices ever paid for coins are usually reserved for historically significant pieces, such as extremely rare early American coins, unique gold coins, or coins with deep historical importance and documented provenance. For a modern penny like the 2007 D to approach such values, it would need to be something completely unprecedented, possibly a one-of-one experimental strike never meant to leave the mint, with full documentation and intense demand from elite collectors. While not impossible in theory, it is extraordinarily unlikely in practice. Despite this, the dream persists, and that dream keeps people searching. Every roll of pennies opened, every jar examined, every coin flipped over under a light carries a small spark of hope.
This emotional connection to the hunt is what makes coin collecting so addictive.
The 2007 penny becomes more than metal, it becomes a symbol of possibility, of hidden value, of the idea that history and fortune can sometimes be found in the most unexpected places. As we continue this journey, we will go even deeper into market behavior, auction dynamics, how values rise and fall, and how collectors protect themselves from scams and misinformation. The story of the 2007 1-cent coin is not just about money, it is about curiosity, knowledge, and the endless human fascination with rarity and discovery. And this is still only part of the story, because there is much more to uncover as we move forward. As we continue further into the world of the 2007 1-cent coin, it becomes essential to understand how the market itself functions, how prices are actually formed, and why two collectors may look at the same penny yet assign completely different values to it. The coin market is not fixed or controlled like a store price tag, it is driven by demand, perception, timing, and emotion. This makes modern coins like the 2007 penny especially interesting, because their value is not rooted in ancient history but in modern collector behavior and evolving trends. One of the most important forces in the coin market is supply versus demand. In 2007, the Denver Mint produced an enormous quantity of 1-cent coins. Because of this massive supply, the base value of the coin remains extremely low. However, demand is not evenly distributed across all examples. Collectors do not want just any 2007 penny, they want the best, the rarest, the most unusual, or the most visually appealing specimens. This selective demand is what creates value pockets within an otherwise common issue. Auction results play a critical role in shaping perceived value. When a high-grade 2007 penny appears in a major auction and sells for a strong price, it sets a reference point for the entire market. Other collectors take notice, price guides update their estimates, and expectations begin to shift. Over time, repeated strong sales can establish a new norm. On the other hand, if demand fades or collectors move their attention elsewhere, prices can stagnate or decline. This constant movement makes the coin market dynamic and sometimes unpredictable. Another factor that influences value is certification. A 2007 penny that is raw, meaning uncertified, may be viewed with skepticism, especially if it claims to be an error or an unusually high grade. Once a coin is certified by a trusted grading service, uncertainty is reduced. The grade, authenticity, and error type are clearly labeled, which makes the coin easier to buy and sell. This added confidence often translates into higher prices, even though the coin itself has not changed physically. Collectors also pay close attention to population reports. These reports show how many coins of a specific date and mint have been graded at each level. For the 2007 penny, population reports reveal that while millions exist, very few achieve the highest grades. When a collector sees that only a handful of coins are graded at MS68 or higher, it creates a sense of urgency and competition. No one wants to miss the opportunity to own one of the best-known examples. Now let's explore the concept of eye appeal, which is often overlooked by beginners but highly valued by experienced collectors. Eye appeal refers to how attractive a coin looks overall. Two coins with the same technical grade can have very different eye appeal. One may have vibrant color, smooth surfaces, and strong luster, while the other may look dull or uneven. For modern copper-plated zinc pennies like the 2007 color plays a huge role. Bright red examples with original mint color are far more desirable than brown or spotted coins. Exceptional eye appeal can push a coin's value beyond what the grade alone might suggest. The role of storytelling in coin collecting cannot be underestimated. Humans are naturally drawn to stories, and coins with compelling narratives often command higher prices. A 2007 penny connected to a famous discovery, a unique error, or a well-known collection can carry an added premium. This is where provenance becomes important. If a coin can be traced back to a notable source or discovery, its value can increase simply because of its story. At this stage, it is important to address scams and misinformation, because modern coins are often targeted by exaggerated claims. Many sellers advertise common 2007 pennies as rare or investment grade, hoping to attract inexperienced buyers. They may use dramatic language, unrealistic price tags, and references to extreme values like hundreds of millions of dollars. Educated collectors know to verify claims through reliable sources, compare prices with recent auction results, and seek professional opinions before making major purchases. The internet has amplified both knowledge and confusion.
On one hand, collectors have access to databases, forums, and expert articles. On the other hand, false information spreads quickly, especially when it promises instant wealth. The key to navigating this environment is education. Understanding how coins are graded, how errors are identified, and how markets behave gives collectors the ability to separate fact from fiction. Despite these challenges, the emotional side of collecting remains powerful. Many people are drawn to the 2007 penny not because of guaranteed profit, but because of the thrill of discovery. Searching through rolls of coins, examining each penny under light, and learning to recognize subtle details creates a sense of purpose and excitement. Even if no million-dollar coin is found, the process itself becomes rewarding. Another aspect worth exploring is the future of the penny itself. In recent years, there has been ongoing debate about whether the 1-cent coin should continue to be produced. Rising production costs and declining purchasing power have led some to question its practicality. If the penny were ever discontinued, coins like the 2007 could take on new significance as relics of a past monetary system. While this alone would not make them worth millions, it could influence long-term collector interest. As we move deeper into this exploration, the 2007 penny begins to represent more than a single coin. It becomes a lens through which we can understand economics, psychology, history, and human curiosity. It shows how value is not just about metal or age, but about perception, rarity within context, and the stories we attach to objects. In the next part, we will continue to peel back the layers, focusing on advanced error analysis, how experts authenticate extreme claims, and what truly separates legendary coins from ordinary ones. The journey is far from over, and the deeper we go, the clearer the line between myth and reality becomes, while still preserving the magic that makes coin collecting endlessly fascinating. As we move into an even deeper and more advanced level of understanding of the 2007 1-cent coin, this is the point where casual curiosity turns into serious expertise. This is where professional numismatists, advanced collectors, and specialists operate, and where the difference between an ordinary story and a legendary discovery becomes clear. At this level, every tiny detail matters, every claim is questioned, and every extraordinary value must be supported by extraordinary evidence. One of the most critical topics here is advanced error authentication. When a coin is claimed to be extremely rare or extraordinarily valuable, especially in the context of modern coins like the 2007 penny, experts do not rely on visual inspection alone. They use microscopes, weight measurements, metal composition analysis, and dye state studies. For example, if someone claims that a 2007 penny is struck on an unusual or experimental planchet, the coin's weight would immediately be measured with high precision. Even a difference of a fraction of a gram can indicate whether the coin is standard or something unusual. Metal analysis is another powerful tool. Techniques such as X-ray fluorescence testing can identify the exact metallic composition of a coin without damaging it. A genuine anomaly in composition would immediately attract attention from experts. For a modern penny, which is expected to be primarily zinc with a copper plating, any deviation from this standard would raise questions. However, such deviations must be explained by mint processes, not post-mint alteration, which is a common attempt at deception. Post-mint damage is one of the biggest obstacles in modern error collecting. Many coins are damaged after leaving the mint, either intentionally or accidentally, and these damaged coins are often mistakenly presented as rare errors. Zinc cents are especially vulnerable to corrosion, plating blisters, and environmental damage. Experts can usually distinguish between true mint errors and damage by studying metal flow, edge characteristics, and surface texture. True mint errors show evidence of having occurred during the striking process, while damage shows irregular, unnatural patterns. Dye state analysis is another advanced method used by specialists. Minting dies go through stages of wear, and coins struck early in a dye's life look different from those struck later. By studying known examples and comparing dye markers such as small scratches or cracks, experts can place a coin within a specific dye state. This kind of analysis helps confirm authenticity and can even link a coin to a known group of error coins. Now let's talk about extreme valuation claims, because this is where realism must be applied. Values in the hundreds of millions of dollars are almost unheard of in numismatics and are typically reserved for coins with unmatched historical importance, extreme rarity, and cultural significance. For a modern coin like the 2007 penny to reach a figure such as $252 million, it would need to satisfy multiple unprecedented conditions at once.
It would likely have to be a one-of-one piece, with documented mint origin, a composition or design never officially released, perfect condition, and overwhelming demand from the world's wealthiest collectors or institutions. In addition to rarity and demand, legal and ethical considerations also come into play. If a coin were discovered that was never meant to leave the mint, questions could arise about ownership rights. There have been cases in the past where coins were recalled or subject to legal disputes.
Any potential buyer willing to spend astronomical sums would require absolute legal clarity before proceeding.
This further narrows the already tiny pool of coins that could ever reach such values. Another advanced topic is the role of institutional collectors. Museums, foundations, and national collections often compete with private collectors for the most important coins. Their involvement can drive prices higher, especially when a coin is considered culturally or historically significant. However, institutions typically focus on coins with clear historical impact, which again makes it extremely difficult for modern circulation coins to enter this elite category. The psychology of ultra-high-end collecting is also worth exploring. At the highest levels, money becomes less about utility and more about status, legacy, and uniqueness. Collectors at this level are not buying coins as investments, they are buying them as symbols of achievement in history. In such a world, price can become almost irrelevant compared to the desire to own something truly unique. This is how record-breaking prices are sometimes achieved. Despite all of this, it is crucial to keep perspective. For most collectors, the value of the 2007 penny lies not in fantasy-level prices but in education, enjoyment, and incremental discoveries. Learning how to identify real errors, how to evaluate condition, and how to understand market behavior provides long-term satisfaction. The penny becomes a teaching tool, a gateway into a broader understanding of numismatics. The 2007 1-cent coin also serves as a reminder of how modern manufacturing intersects with human error.
Even in highly automated systems, mistakes can occur, and those mistakes can become treasured artifacts.
This intersection of precision and imperfection is what gives error coins their unique appeal. As we move toward the next part, the focus will shift toward practical guidance, how collectors can responsibly search for valuable coins, how to store and protect them, and how to avoid common mistakes that can destroy value. The story of the 2007 penny continues to unfold, not as a promise of instant wealth, but as a rich and layered journey into the heart of collecting itself. As we continue this journey into the 2007 1-cent coin, this part focuses on the practical side of collecting, the habits, routines, and decisions that can quietly determine whether a coin remains ordinary or becomes something truly special. This is the stage where theory meets real life, where collectors move from watching videos and reading stories to actually holding coins in their hands and making choices that affect long-term value. One of the most important habits a collector can develop is careful handling. Modern pennies like the 2007 are especially sensitive because of their zinc core and thin copper plating. Touching the surface with bare fingers can leave oils that eventually cause discoloration or corrosion. Serious collectors learn to hold coins by the edges only, minimizing contact with the faces. Even a coin that looks perfect today can slowly degrade if handled improperly over time, silently losing potential value. Storage is another critical factor. Many valuable coins have lost much of their worth simply because they were stored incorrectly. The 2007 penny should be kept in a stable environment, away from moisture, heat, and air pollution. Cardboard holders, plastic flips made from non-PVC materials, and hard plastic capsules are commonly used. PVC plastic is especially dangerous because it releases chemicals that can damage coin surfaces over time. A coin stored poorly can develop green residue, dark spots, or peeling plating, all of which drastically reduce desirability. Another mistake many beginners make is cleaning coins. Cleaning is one of the fastest ways to destroy value. Even gentle rubbing can leave microscopic scratches that are immediately visible to experts. Chemical cleaning is even worse, as it can strip away original surfaces and alter color permanently. A 2007 penny, even if dirty or dull, should never be cleaned if there is any chance it could be collectible. Original condition, even with minor imperfections, is always preferred over artificial shine. Collectors who actively search for valuable 2007 pennies often use coin roll hunting as a method. This involves obtaining rolls of pennies from banks and carefully examining each coin. While the chances of finding a major rarity are low, this method allows collectors to build knowledge, spot minor errors, and occasionally discover high-grade examples. Over time, role hunting trains the eye to recognize subtle differences that most people would never notice. Another practical approach is studying known examples. Looking at images of verified errors, certified high-grade coins, and documented varieties helps build a mental reference library. When a collector later encounters a potential error or unusual coin, they can compare it to known standards. This reduces the risk of misidentifying damage as a mint error, which is a very common beginner mistake. Networking within the collecting community also plays a major role. Coin clubs, online forums, and social media groups provide spaces where collectors can share discoveries, ask questions, and learn from more experienced individuals. A questionable 2007 D penny can often be evaluated more accurately when multiple knowledgeable eyes examine it. This collective wisdom helps prevent costly errors and spreads reliable information. Selling coins is another area where realistic expectations are crucial. Many people assume that listing a coin online with a high asking price means it is worth that amount. In reality, value is determined by what buyers are willing to pay, not what sellers hope to receive. Completed sales, not active listings, provide the most accurate picture of market value. For a 2007 D penny, even rare errors typically fall within established price ranges, and expecting fantasy-level returns can lead to disappointment. Professional appraisal becomes important when a coin appears genuinely unusual. If a collector believes they have found a significant error or an exceptionally high-grade 2007 D penny, submitting it to a reputable grading service is often the next step. While grading fees exist, certification provides clarity, authenticity, and market trust. This step separates serious discoveries from speculation. It is also worth discussing patience, because coin collecting rewards those who think long-term. Values do not usually skyrocket overnight. Trends shift slowly, driven by collector interest, economic conditions, and generational change. A coin that seems overlooked today may become more desirable in the future as collecting tastes evolve. Holding onto quality pieces and allowing time to work is often wiser than chasing quick profits. Education remains the strongest tool a collector can have. Understanding minting processes, learning how dies are made, studying historical production numbers, and following auction results all build a foundation that protects against misinformation. The more knowledge a collector gains, the less likely they are to be misled by exaggerated claims or unrealistic promises. Emotion also plays a subtle but powerful role. The excitement of finding something unusual can cloud judgment. Many collectors have convinced themselves they discovered something extraordinary, only to later learn it was common damage or a minor variation. Learning to balance excitement with skepticism is a sign of maturity in collecting. Questioning one's own assumptions is just as important as questioning the claims of others. The 2007 D1 coin, through all of this, continues to act as a symbol of balance between hope and reality. It teaches that while extraordinary discoveries are rare, they are not impossible. It shows that value is built through careful observation, responsible behavior, and continuous learning. Even when no rare coin is found, the skills gained through searching and studying remain valuable. As this exploration continues, the focus will move even closer to the human side of collecting, how personal motivation, nostalgia, and cultural meaning influence why people care so deeply about coins that, on the surface, seem so small and insignificant. The story of the 2007 D penny is not just about money, it is about mindset, discipline, and the quiet satisfaction of understanding something deeply that most people pass by without a second glance. As we move into this next stage of the story of the 2007 D1 coin, the focus shifts from technical knowledge and practical handling to the deeper human connection that makes coin collecting such a powerful and lasting passion. This is where the penny stops being just an object and starts becoming a personal experience, shaped by memory, curiosity, and the desire to connect with history in a tangible way. For many collectors, the journey begins with nostalgia. The penny is often the first coin a child ever holds, the first piece of money placed in a small hand. The 2007 D penny may remind people of a specific time in their lives, a year marked by personal milestones, world events, or everyday routines. These emotional connections add layers of meaning that go far beyond metal and market value. A coin from a familiar year can feel more significant simply because it is tied to memory. This emotional attachment is one reason people are drawn to searching through everyday change. There is something deeply satisfying about the idea that history passes through our hands unnoticed. The 2007 D penny traveled through countless transactions, from stores to pockets to jars, quietly doing its job.
Each scratch and mark tells a story of movement and use. Even uncirculated examples represent a moment frozen in time, untouched since the day they were made. Collectors often describe a sense of calm and focus when examining coins. The act of slowing down, looking closely, and paying attention to tiny details can be almost meditative. In a fast-paced world dominated by screens and instant gratification, the simple act of studying a coin offers a different kind of satisfaction. The 2007 penny, with its familiar design and subtle variations, becomes a tool for mindfulness as much as a collectible. There is also a powerful element of hope involved. The idea that something valuable could be hiding in plain sight speaks to a universal human dream. Even when logic says the odds are small, the possibility itself keeps people engaged. This hope does not always lead to financial gain, but it fuels curiosity and persistence. It encourages learning, observation, and patience, qualities that extend far beyond coin collecting. Cultural meaning plays a role as well. The image of Abraham Lincoln on the penny carries deep symbolic weight. Lincoln represents unity, sacrifice, and leadership during one of the most difficult periods in American history. Holding a 2007 penny is, in a small way, holding a piece of that legacy. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse reinforces this connection, reminding collectors that coins are not just economic tools but carriers of national identity. The penny also reflects broader economic and social themes. By 2007, the purchasing power of 1 cent had already declined significantly compared to earlier decades. The continued production of the penny sparked debates about efficiency, tradition, and change. In this sense, the 2007 penny exists at a crossroads between past and future, tradition and practicality. Collectors who study it are also studying these larger questions. Within the collecting community, stories are shared and passed down. Someone remembers finding an unusual coin and change, another recalls inheriting a small collection from a relative, another talks about years of searching without success. These stories create a shared culture built on experience rather than profit. The 2007 penny becomes part of this shared narrative, a common reference point that connects people across backgrounds and generations. Mentorship is another important aspect. Experienced collectors often guide beginners, teaching them how to spot real errors, how to avoid scams, and how to appreciate coins for what they truly are. This transfer of knowledge strengthens the community and preserves standards. Through this process, even a common coin like the 2007 penny gains importance as a teaching example and learning tool. Disappointment is also part of the journey. Not every search leads to a discovery, and many coins initially believed to be rare turn out to be ordinary. Learning to accept this without losing enthusiasm is part of becoming a seasoned collector. Over time, collectors learn that the value of the hobby lies not just in results, but in the process itself. The concept of legacy emerges as collectors grow older. Many begin to think about what will happen to their collections in the future. Coins are often passed down to children or grandchildren, carrying stories along with them. A 2007 penny found today could one day be shown to a future generation as an example of what people once used, valued, and debated. In this way, even the most modest coin can become a bridge between generations. As we prepare to move into the next part, the focus will turn toward long-term perspectives, how collections evolve over decades, how market cycles repeat, and how the meaning of coins changes with time. The 2007 1 cent coin continues to serve as a quiet but powerful symbol, reminding us that significance is not always measured in size or price, but in the connections we form and the understanding we gain along the way. As we move into this part of the story, the perspective stretches even further, beyond individual collectors and single lifetimes, and into the long arc of time. This is where the 2007 1 cent coin is viewed not just as a modern object, but as a future historical artifact. Coins that are ordinary today often become important tomorrow, not always because of rarity, but because they represent an era that no longer exists. History shows us that everyday coins frequently survive longer than paper records. Long after receipts, documents, and digital files disappear, coins remain. The 2007 penny, produced in enormous quantities, will still be found decades and even centuries from now. Future historians may study it to understand early 21st century America, its economy, its values, and its technological capabilities. The materials, the design, and even the quality of the strike will all tell stories. One important factor in this long-term view is survival rate. While millions of 2007 pennies were minted,
not all of them will survive in collectible condition.
Zinc-based cents are especially vulnerable to environmental damage. Over time, many will corrode, discolor, or be destroyed. High-quality examples, carefully preserved by collectors, will become increasingly scarce. This gradual reduction in supply is one of the reasons why even modern coins can gain importance over time. Another long-term consideration is design change. The Lincoln Memorial Reverse was retired in 2008, replaced by new designs and later the Union Shield Reverse. This means the 2007 D penny belongs to the final chapter of the Lincoln Memorial era. Being part of the end of a long-running design gives it a certain historical weight. Collectors often show increased interest in coins that mark the closing of a chapter, even if they were once common. Economic shifts also influence how future generations view coins. Inflation continues to erode the purchasing power of small denominations. There may come a time when the penny is no longer produced or used at all. If that happens, coins like the 2007 D penny will stand as reminders of a time when 1 cent still had a physical presence in daily life. This context can reshape how people value and interpret these coins. The role of technology in collecting will also shape the future. Advanced imaging, artificial intelligence, and improved databases will allow future collectors to analyze coins with incredible precision. Errors that were once overlooked may be reclassified or better understood. The 2007 D penny could be studied in ways that are not yet possible today, revealing patterns and insights that add to its story. A cultural perception changes over time as well. What one generation ignores, another may cherish. Coins often gain symbolic meaning long after they stop circulating. A 2007 D penny might one day be displayed in museums or educational collections as an example of early 21st century currency, teaching future students about material science, design evolution, and economic policy. The collecting community itself evolves. Tastes shift, focus areas change, and new specialties emerge. Some collectors may specialize in zinc cents, others in error coins from the early 2000s, others in final year issues of classic designs. Within these niches, the 2007 D penny may take on increased importance, not because it is universally rare, but because it fits a specific historical narrative. Legacy collections play a role in shaping long-term value. Coins preserved and documented today may become reference pieces tomorrow. A well-curated collection that includes high-quality 2007 D pennies could influence future research and standards. The decisions collectors make now, how they store, document, and describe their coins, contribute to how those coins are understood in the future. There is also a philosophical aspect to this long view. The penny reminds us that value is fluid and context-dependent. What matters is not just what something is worth today, but what it represents and how it is remembered. The 2007 D penny embodies a moment in time, a snapshot of American monetary history captured in metal. As this exploration continues toward its later stages, the focus will turn toward synthesis, bringing together history, market behavior, emotion, and future perspective into a complete understanding. The story of the 2007 D 1 cent coin is no longer just about searching for rare errors or dreaming of extreme prices. It is about understanding how ordinary objects become meaningful over time, and how the smallest pieces of our world can carry the weight of history. As we enter this next part of the journey, everything begins to come together in a more reflective and philosophical way. At this stage, the 2007 D 1 cent coin is no longer being viewed only through the lens of rarity, errors, or market price, but as a complete symbol of how humans assign meaning to objects over time. This is where understanding replaces speculation, and appreciation becomes deeper than the hope of profit. One of the most powerful ideas in coin collecting is that value is layered. There is face value, which for the 2007 D penny is 1 cent. There is market value, which fluctuates depending on condition, errors, and demand. And then there is personal and historical value, which cannot be measured in money at all. Many collectors eventually realize that the last two layers are often more important than the first. A coin becomes special not just because of what it could sell for, but because of what it represents to the person holding it. The 2007 D penny represents a mature stage of American coinage technology. By this time, minting processes were highly automated, quality control was advanced, and production numbers were massive. Yet even in this environment, variation and imperfection still existed. This reminds us that no system is ever completely flawless.
Human design, machine execution, and material behavior always interact in unpredictable ways. That interaction is what creates individuality, even among millions of identical coins. Another important realization is that most legendary coins were once ordinary. Many of the most famous and valuable coins in the world were not recognized as special when they were first produced. They became special later, after circumstances changed, after survival rates dropped, after history reshaped their context. This idea fuels the imagination of modern collectors. It suggests that even a common coin like the 2007 penny could one day be viewed differently, not because it changed, but because the world around it did. There is also an educational value that grows over time. A collector who has spent years studying pennies develops a deep understanding of minting, design evolution, economics, and history. The 2007 penny becomes part of a larger framework of knowledge. It connects backward to earlier Lincoln cents and forward to newer designs. It becomes a reference point, a comparison tool, and a marker within a much bigger story. This long-term engagement changes how collectors see money in general. Coins stop being disposable objects and start being artifacts. Even when spending coins in daily life, collectors notice details others ignore. Dates, mint marks, wear patterns, and design elements all become familiar. The world becomes richer in detail, simply because the collector has learned to look more closely. Another layer of meaning comes from discipline. Building a collection requires restraint, organization, and decision-making. Not every coin can be saved, not every claim can be believed, not every opportunity should be chased. The 2007 penny teaches this lesson well. It is common enough to be easily found, yet nuanced enough to reward careful study. It encourages selectivity rather than hoarding, understanding rather than impulse. The discussion around extreme values, such as hundreds of millions of dollars, also takes on a different tone at this stage. Instead of being taken literally, such numbers become symbolic. They represent the outer edge of imagination, the idea of ultimate rarity and desire. For many collectors, these figures are not goals but stories, expressions of what could exist under perfect and nearly impossible conditions. Understanding this helps separate fantasy from realistic expectations without losing the sense of wonder. The social aspect of collecting also deepens over time. Conversations become more thoughtful, debates more informed, and shared experiences more meaningful. A simple discussion about a 2007 penny can lead to conversations about history, economics, technology, and personal memory. In this way, the coin becomes a starting point rather than an end point. There is also a quiet satisfaction that comes from completeness. Some collectors aim to assemble full date and mint mark sets. For them, the 2007 penny is one piece of a larger puzzle. When placed in its proper position, it contributes to a sense of order and achievement. Completing a set brings a kind of fulfillment that is hard to explain to outsiders but deeply felt by those within the hobby. As time passes, collectors often realize that their relationship with coins mirrors their relationship with time itself. Early on, the focus is on excitement and discovery. Later, it shifts to understanding and preservation. Eventually, it becomes about legacy and meaning. The 2007 penny travels through all of these stages alongside the collector, changing not in form, but in significance. As this exploration moves toward its final stages, the emphasis will turn toward reflection and conclusion, tying together all the technical, emotional, historical, and philosophical threads. The story of the 2007 1-cent coin continues to show that even the smallest unit of currency can carry enormous depth when viewed with patience, curiosity, and respect. As we move into this part, the narrative becomes quieter, deeper, and more reflective, almost like standing at the end of a long journey and looking back at every step taken. By now, the 2007 1-cent coin has transformed from a simple object into a symbol layered with meaning, knowledge, and experience. This is the point where understanding matures and excitement settles into wisdom. At this stage, collectors often realize that the true reward was never the promise of sudden wealth. It was the transformation that happened along the way. The hours spent examining coins, the mistakes made and lessons learned, the gradual sharpening of the eye and mind, all of these shape the collector into someone who sees the world differently. The 2007 penny becomes a silent witness to that transformation point. One of the most important realizations is how perspective changes value. Early on, value is measured in numbers. Later, it is measured in insight. A collector who once hoped to find a single miracle coin worth an impossible amount may later feel just as satisfied identifying a subtle die crack or recognizing an early die state example. Knowledge itself becomes the reward, and the coin becomes the medium through which the knowledge was earned. There is also a sense of humility that develops. Studying coins teaches patience and respect for reality. Not every unusual mark is an error. Not every shiny coin is valuable. Learning to accept ordinary outcomes without disappointment is a powerful skill. The 2007 penny teaches this lesson repeatedly, reminding collectors that rarity is the exception, not the rule, and that discipline is more valuable than hope alone. Time plays a quiet but constant role. Coins do not rush, and neither does the collector who truly understands the hobby. The 2007 penny has already existed for years, and it will continue to exist long after today. This long lifespan encourages a slower mindset, one that values preservation over consumption and observation over impulse. In a world that moves quickly, this slower rhythm becomes a source of calm. Another deep realization comes from comparison. When the 2007 penny is placed beside older cents, the differences in metal, strike quality, and surface texture become clear. When it is placed beside newer cents, changes in design and production philosophy stand out. Through comparison, the collector begins to understand continuity and change, how traditions evolve while maintaining familiar elements. The penny becomes a timeline in miniature. Collectors also begin to understand responsibility. Owning coins is not just about possession, it is about stewardship. Preserving a 2007 penny in good condition means protecting a small piece of history for the future. This sense of responsibility often extends beyond coins into other areas of life, encouraging care, respect, and attention to detail. There is also a growing appreciation for imperfection. A perfectly struck, flawless coin is impressive, but an error coin tells a different kind of story. It reveals the moment something went slightly wrong, creating something unique. The 2007 penny, especially in its error forms, shows that imperfection can be meaningful and even desirable. This idea resonates far beyond collecting. By this point, the collector often stops asking how much is it worth and starts asking what does it teach me? The penny becomes a teacher. It teaches history through its design, science through its materials, economics through its existence, and psychology through the way people react to it. Few objects offer such a wide range of lessons in such a small form. The conversation around extreme values, such as hundreds of millions of dollars, becomes almost symbolic at this stage. It represents the human tendency to dream big, to imagine extraordinary outcomes from ordinary beginnings. Even when those dreams are unrealistic, they serve a purpose. They inspire curiosity, spark learning, and bring people into the world of collecting. In that sense, even exaggerated stories have a role to play. Community bonds also deepen. Long-term collectors often form lasting friendships through shared interest. Discussions become less about proving value and more about exchanging insight. The 2007 penny becomes a common language, a familiar reference that connects people across distance, culture, and background. As this journey approaches its final part, there is a sense of completeness, not because every question has been answered, but because the right questions are now being asked. The 2007 1-cent coin stands quietly at the center of this understanding, unchanged in form, yet vastly transformed in meaning. What began as a simple search for value has become a lifelong appreciation for detail, history, and the beauty hidden within the ordinary. As we arrive at the final part of this long journey, everything settles into a calm and complete understanding. The search, the curiosity, the excitement, the myths, the realities, and the lessons all come together here. The 2007 1-cent coin remains exactly what it always was in physical form: small, light, simple, and common, yet through knowledge and reflection it has become something far greater in meaning. At the end of this exploration, it becomes clear that the true power of the 2007 penny is not hidden in a guaranteed price tag or a promised fortune. Its power lies in what it represents. It represents how ordinary objects can become extraordinary through attention. It shows how history is not only found in museums or textbooks, but in everyday items that pass silently through millions of hands. It reminds us that value is not fixed, it is shaped by time, context, and understanding. The dream of finding a penny worth unimaginable money, even figures like hundreds of millions of dollars, plays an important role in this story. That dream is not about realism, it is about motivation.
It pulls people into learning, into looking closer, into asking questions. Without that dream, many would never pause to examine a coin at all. In that sense, the dream itself has value, because it opens the door to knowledge. Through this journey, the 2007 D penny has taught patience. It has taught skepticism. It has taught respect for facts and appreciation for subtlety. It has shown that mistakes can be meaningful, that perfection is rare, and that rarity is relative. It has demonstrated that even in a world of advanced technology and mass production, individuality still exists in small and surprising ways. For some, this penny will remain just a penny, spent and forgotten. For others, it will become part of a collection, carefully stored and occasionally admired. For a few, it will be a teaching tool, a reminder of how they learn to see differently. And for future generations, it may become a historical artifact, a small piece of evidence from a time when one cent still had a physical form and cultural presence. The most important lesson at the end of all this is simple. Not every journey is about the destination. The act of searching, learning, and understanding brings its own reward. The 2007 D1 cent coin does not promise riches, but it offers insight. It invites curiosity. It rewards patience. And it quietly proves that significance is not determined by size, but by perspective. So when you next see a penny, especially one dated 2007 with a small d beneath the year, take a moment before you dismiss it. Hold it, look at it, and remember that within that tiny circle of metal exists history, effort, error, imagination, and meaning. That penny has traveled a long road to reach you, just as this story has traveled a long road to reach its end, and with that understanding, the story of the 2007 D1 cent coin does not truly end. It continues every time someone looks closer, asks questions, and chooses to see value where others see nothing at all.